Mr. Zuckerberg, you and the companies before us, I know you don't mean it to be so, but you have blood on your hands. You have a product. You have a product that's killing people. When we had cigarettes killing people, we did something about it, maybe not. You're gonna talk about guns, we have the ATF. Nothing here. There's not a damn thing anybody can do about it. You can't be sued.
Condemning Facemash, and many students demanded disciplinary action. Even some of Zuckerberg's classmates reportedly confronted him personally, accusing him of objectifying students and violating their privacy. Despite its controversy, Facemash was a turning point. Even though it was shut down, it proved something important. People were obsessed with looking at each other's profiles online. This realization would become the foundation of Facebook. Zuckerberg himself later admitted that Facemash was a mistake, but it wasn't just a harmless college experiment. It showed his early disregard for privacy. He saw how easy it was to collect and use personal data, a mindset that would later fuel Facebook's most controversial practices. And this was just the beginning. In fact, Zuckerberg's next move would be even more questionable, one that led to an infamous legal battle that lasted for years. Their goal? To create an exclusive social networking site for Harvard students. They needed a skilled programmer to bring their vision to life, and that's when they approached Mark Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg agreed to help, but behind the scenes, something suspicious was happening. According to emails and messages that later surfaced, Zuckerberg repeatedly delayed progress on Harvard Connection while secretly working on his own project, the Facebook.com. On February 4, 2004, just months after his first meetings with the Winklevoss twins, Zuckerberg launched Facebook. The Winklevoss brothers were shocked. The core concept of Facebook looked strikingly similar to their own idea. Furious, they sued Zuckerberg, accusing him of intellectual property theft and fraudulent behavior. The legal battle dragged on for 4 years. During the lawsuit, emails and instant messages were revealed, showing that Zuckerberg may have intentionally strung the Winklevoss twins along while developing Facebook behind their backs. In one message, he allegedly wrote about delaying responses to the twins while working on his own site. As the lawsuit gained traction, Facebook's rise to dominance was unstoppable. By the time the case was settled in 2008, the company had already expanded far beyond Harvard, and its valuation was soaring. The Winklevoss twins ultimately walked away with $65 million in cash and Facebook stock, but even they admitted it wasn't enough. Years later, as Facebook became a and it wasn't against rivals. It was against his own best friend and Facebook co-founder, Eduardo Saverin. If there was one person who believed in Facebook from the very beginning, it was Eduardo Saverin. He wasn't just Mark Zuckerberg's friend, he was Facebook's first investor, providing the startup capital that helped get the site off the ground. But despite his loyalty, Saverin was blindsided by one of the coldest betrayals in tech history. When Zuckerberg started Facebook in 2004, he needed funding to keep the site running. Eduardo Saverin, a Harvard student from a wealthy Brazilian family, invested $15,000 of his own money, securing a 30% stake in the company. At first, everything seemed fine. Saverin was listed as Facebook's CFO, managing the company's finances while Zuckerberg handled the coding. But behind the scenes, tensions were brewing. As Facebook started gaining momentum, Zuckerberg began to see Saverin as an obstacle rather than a partner. While Zuckerberg wanted to move fast and attract Silicon Valley investors, Saverin was slow to secure ads and revenue streams. This led to frustration, and soon, Zuckerberg started working on a plan to push Saverin out. Without Saverin realizing it, Zuckerberg and Facebook's new investors created a scheme to dilute Saverin's shares. In early 2005, Saverin's 30% stake in Facebook was quietly reduced to less than 10%. Eventually sued Facebook, and after a legal battle, the case was settled out of court. Although the settlement amount was never publicly disclosed, Saverin's name was restored as a Facebook co-founder. He reportedly received a multi-billion-dollar payout thanks to his early shares. But the damage was done. Zuckerberg's ruthless business tactics were clear. He was willing to cut out even his closest allies if it meant securing control of Facebook. Saverin left the tech world and focused on investments, but the betrayal stayed with him. And Saverin wasn't the only one who suffered from Facebook's early power moves. Zuckerberg was also accused of invading user privacy before Facebook even became a global platform. Mark Zuckerberg has always been known as a brilliant programmer, but during his Harvard days, he allegedly used his skills for more than just building Facebook. Reports suggest that he hacked into private email accounts and accessed confidential information, raising serious concerns about his approach to privacy, even in Facebook's early days. One of the most alarming incidents took place when Zuckerberg was still developing Facebook. According to leaked records, he allegedly gained access to private email accounts of Harvard students using login data from Facebook itself. Since students were signing up with their Harvard email credentials, Zuckerberg had access to their usernames and passwords, and he reportedly used them to break into email accounts without permission. But it doesn't stop there. In 2010, business disregard for privacy, a mindset that would later cause major scandals for Facebook. Even at Harvard, he realized that personal data was power. When these details resurfaced years later, Zuckerberg never denied the authenticity of the messages, but brushed them off as youthful mistakes. However, critics argue that these early actions set the foundation for Facebook's questionable data privacy policies in the future. Harvard officials were aware of Zuckerberg's history of hacking. Remember, he had already hacked Harvard's student database to create Facemash. But surprisingly, he was never formally punished for these alleged privacy violations. Instead, Facebook continued to grow, and Zuckerberg's control over user data only expanded. The most shocking part? This wasn't an isolated incident. Over the years, Facebook has faced multiple privacy scandals, including the infamous Cambridge Analytica case, where millions of users' data was secretly harvested for political campaigns. It makes you wonder, did Zuckerberg's attitude toward privacy ever really change? And speaking of controversial beginnings, Facebook itself was originally meant to be more than just a social network. It had a hidden purpose that many people don't know about. February 2004, it wasn't initially designed as a place to share life updates or network professionally. Instead, it focused on profile pictures, relationship statuses, and exclusivity, elements that still carried the DNA of Facemash. Early versions of Facebook encouraged users to judge their peers based on their photos. The site's early tagline even read, "An online directory that connects people through social networks within colleges." But the reality? It was a more polished, less offensive version of Facemash, a digital popularity contest where students could check out their classmates, compare attractiveness, and see who was single. Facebook's early marketing also leaned into exclusivity, making it feel like an elite club. At first, only Harvard students could join. Then, Zuckerberg expanded it to Ivy League schools, and later, to colleges nationwide. This created a sense of status and social hierarchy, much like what Facemash had originally played on. It wasn't until years later that Facebook started shifting its focus toward being a global platform for communication and business. Features like the newsfeed, groups, and marketplace came much later. But at its core, Facebook's foundation was built on vanity, exclusivity, and social comparison, not on bringing people together. Zuckerberg rarely acknowledges this part of Facebook's history. But Facebook's early ethical concerns didn't stop here. Next, we look at how Zuckerberg experimented with user data from the very beginning, setting the stage for future privacy scandals. From the very beginning, Facebook wasn't just a social network, it was a data goldmine, and Mark Zuckerberg knew it. Long before the world started questioning Facebook's privacy policies, Zuckerberg was already experimenting with user data in ways that would later spark global controversy. In Facebook's early days, most users had no idea how much information they were handing over. When students signed up, they provided their real names, email addresses, birthdays, relationship statuses, and even dorm locations, a level of personal detail that most websites didn't require at the time. But what was Facebook doing with this data? Zuckerberg saw an opportunity. Unlike other social media platforms that focused on anonymity, Facebook was built on real identities, making its data incredibly valuable. Reports suggest that even in its earliest stages, Facebook was analyzing user behavior, tracking interactions, and storing personal details in ways that users never explicitly agreed to. One of the most shocking revelations came from leaked conversations between Zuckerberg and a friend. Continued with Eduardo Saverin, and later with competitors in Silicon Valley. A prime example? Facebook's attack on Snapchat. When Snapchat refused to sell to Facebook, Zuckerberg responded by cloning its core feature, disappearing stories, and integrating it into Instagram and Facebook. The result? Snapchat lost millions of users, and Facebook kept its dominance intact. But his aggression wasn't limited to business moves. Inside Facebook, employees describe a workplace culture of extreme pressure, long hours, and constant fear of being replaced. Many who worked with him in the early days said Zuckerberg was cold, calculating, and laser-focused on crushing competition at all costs. His leadership style also led to internal paranoia. It's reported that Zuckerberg personally monitored employees' loyalty and had no hesitation in firing those who disagreed with him. His obsession with control even extended to his own inner circle, ensuring that he remained at the top of Facebook with unchecked power. This mindset of doing whatever it takes to stay on top is what built Facebook into a tech empire. But it also earned Zuckerberg a reputation as one of the most feared and controversial CEOs in history, and that's exactly what he did to companies that stood in his way. Facebook may have started as a college project, but as it grew into a tech empire, in 2012, Facebook was feeling the heat from Instagram, a rapidly growing photo-sharing app. Instead of competing fairly, Zuckerberg bought Instagram for $1 billion, a price many thought was excessive at the time. But in reality, he wasn't just acquiring Instagram, he was neutralizing a potential threat. After the acquisition, Facebook made major changes to Instagram's algorithm, making it more dependent on Facebook's infrastructure. Instagram's original founders eventually left the company, frustrated with Zuckerberg's control. 2. The Snapchat attack. When Snapchat refused to sell to Facebook, Zuckerberg declared war. He cloned Snapchat's best features, like disappearing stories, and integrated them into Facebook and Instagram. The strategy worked. Instagram stories quickly surpassed Snapchat in daily users. But that wasn't all. Facebook allegedly used anti-competitive tactics to hurt Snapchat's growth. Reports suggest that Facebook restricted Snapchat's ability to grow on its platform, making it harder for Snapchat content to be shared. 3. The secret Project Storm. In 2013, Facebook executives discussed launching a fake competitor app to gather user data and undermine Snapchat. The project, internally named Project Storm, never went public, but it showed how far Facebook was willing to go to eliminate competition. The TikTok crackdown. As TikTok exploded in popularity, Facebook allegedly pressured advertisers and influencers to stay away from the platform. Facebook also pushed anti-TikTok narratives, warning that the app was a security risk. These tactics helped Facebook maintain dominance, but at a cost. Zuckerberg has been accused of stifling innovation and using unfair business practices. And Facebook's aggressive tactics didn't stop at business moves. It also extended to how Zuckerberg handled his critics at Harvard. When Mark Zuckerberg launched Facemash and later Facebook, Harvard's students and faculty had mixed reactions. Some saw him as a brilliant innovator, while others viewed him as an unethical hacker who broke the rules to get ahead. 1. Students were furious. Facemash, Zuckerberg's first major project, left many Harvard students outraged. The website ranked students' attractiveness without their consent, using photos taken from Harvard's database. Many students, especially women, felt violated and objectified. Harvard's student newspaper, the Harvard Crimson, published several articles condemning Facemash, labeling it offensive and a major invasion of privacy. Some students even personally confronted Zuckerberg, demanding an apology. 2. Harvard almost expelled him. After the Facemash scandal, Harvard launched an investigation into Zuckerberg's activities. He was charged with breaching security by hacking into university databases, violating privacy laws by exposing student photos without consent, breaking Harvard's ethical code. Many assumed he would be expelled, but surprisingly, Harvard dropped the charges. Some believe it was because the university saw potential in Zuckerberg and didn't want to punish a promising student. Others think Zuckerberg used his intelligence to Even after Facebook started gaining traction, many Harvard students didn't take him seriously. They viewed him as a nerdy programmer, not a future billionaire. Ironically, many of these same students later regretted not investing in Facebook when they had the chance. 4th, professors underestimated him. Harvard's faculty had mixed opinions on Zuckerberg. Some saw him as a genius ahead of his time, while others dismissed him as a reckless rule breaker. One professor even reportedly told him that Facebook was a waste of time and would never amount to anything. Of course, history proved otherwise. Zuckerberg's time at Harvard shaped his mindset. He learned that rules could be bent, and success often comes from taking risks. And as he moved forward, he made sure to erase certain records from his Harvard past. There are mysteries surrounding Mark Zuckerberg's time at Harvard, and one of the biggest is the disappearance of certain records related to his early activities. Some believe that key details about his controversial actions, lawsuits, and hacking incidents have been quietly erased. But the real question is, was this intentional? And if so, who was behind it? 1. The missing Facemash files. After Zuckerberg created Facemash, Harvard took action against him for hacking into university servers and violating student privacy. However, years later, when reporters and researchers tried to find official records of Harvard's investigation, they discovered that some key documents were missing. Harvard keeps detailed disciplinary records, but Zuckerberg's case seems to have vanished from official archives. Was it routine cleanup, or was someone protecting his legacy? 2. The Harvard Crimson email scandal. During the early days of Facebook, the Harvard Crimson was preparing to publish an article about Zuckerberg's alleged betrayal of the Winklevoss twins. According to reports, Zuckerberg hacked into the Crimson's email accounts to see what they were writing about it. Later, when the story resurfaced, some of the digital records related to this scandal were nowhere to be found. Did Zuckerberg or someone close to him make them disappear? 3. Harvard's silence on Zuckerberg's past. Despite multiple controversies, Harvard rarely speaks about Zuckerberg's time as a student. In fact, when journalists request information about the Facemash incident or his disciplinary history, Harvard either refuses to comment or claims they have no records. Compare this to other famous Harvard dropouts, like Bill Gates or Matt Damon, whose college stories are well documented and openly discussed. With Zuckerberg, there seems to be a deliberate effort to keep certain details hidden. The theory: reputation control. Some speculate that as Facebook became a tech empire, efforts were made to scrub damaging information from Zuckerberg's past. Given Facebook's history of controlling narratives, it wouldn't be surprising if steps were taken to clean up his early controversies. The fact remains, some records that should exist simply don't. Even Harvard students who studied alongside Zuckerberg recall events differently, suggesting that certain details were altered or erased from public view. So, did Zuckerberg use his influence to erase parts of his history? Or was this just a case of Harvard protecting one of its most famous alumni? Despite his controversial rise, one fact remains. Mark Zuckerberg is one of the most powerful people in the world. Facebook, now known as Meta, continues to expand into virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and beyond. If his past actions are any indication, he's willing to do whatever it takes to remain at the top. Let us know in the comments. Do you think Mark Zuckerberg's success was genius or just ruthless ambition? And if you found this video interesting, don't forget to like this video to support the channel. Subscribe for more deep dives into tech scandals. Turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Because trust me, there's a lot more that big tech doesn't want you to know.